This little red switch was invented for a much simpler boat than most of us own today. 50 years ago, a boat might have two ordinary lead acid batteries, a modest alternator, a few lights, maybe a refrigerator, but no solar panels or lithium banks or automatic charging relays. The switch made perfect sense in that world. But as owners added more batteries, larger house banks, new charging equipment, and different chemistries, the same simple switch became a surprisingly easy way to flatten every battery aboard, damage an alternator, or connect two banks that should never have been connected in the first place. So let's go back to the beginning and explain what the 1-2 both off switch was originally designed to do. Imagine a very simple boat with one battery. The single battery starts the engine. It runs the cabin lights. It powers the instruments and pumps and radio and refrigerator. When the engine's running, the alternator puts electricity back into that same battery. It's a beautifully simple system right up until you anchor for the night. The engine stops, the charging stops, but the refrigerator keeps cycling. The anchor light comes on, people use cabin lights, the water pump runs, maybe the stereo plays for a few hours. All evening, the boat slowly removes energy from the same battery that will be expected to start the engine in the morning. Eventually, boat owners discovered the obvious weakness in this arrangement. If you use the battery too heavily without running the engine long enough to recharge it, you can wake up with a perfectly comfortable boat and absolutely no way to start the engine. The easiest solution was to install a second battery. Now the boat had battery 1 and battery 2. They were often similar batteries of the same chemistry and age and voltage and approximate capacity. Either one could start the engine. Either one could run the lights in the refrigerator. Either one could be charged by the alternator. The battery selector switch allowed the operator to choose which battery was connected to the boat. Set the switch to 1, and battery 1 runs everything. It starts the engine, it powers the electrical panel, and it receives the charging current from the alternator when that engine's running. Set the switch to 2, and battery 2 does the same stuff. Set it to both, and the two batteries are connected together into one big battery. They still operate at the same voltage, but they share the load and can both receive the charge from the alternator. Set it to off, and the switch disconnects both batteries from the boat entirely. This was the original logic. It wasn't really a start battery and a house battery. It was one working battery and one reserve battery. The both position also had a logical purpose. If both batteries were similar and in reasonable condition, you could combine them for additional starting power if you needed it. You could also select both while motoring, so the alternator would charge both batteries. And when you selected both, the batteries would equalize against each other. In that original installation, the switch was simple. It was an inexpensive, mechanical, effective thing. The batteries were similar, the loads were modest. The charging system was uncomplicated. The owner knew exactly what battery 1 and battery 2 were. The trouble began when boats stopped being that simple. As electrical demands increased, owners wanted more capacity for house loads. Refrigeration became common, electronics multiplied, autopilots, radars, chart plotters, inverters. Entertainment systems and pressure water pumps, and a dozen other devices arrived on the boat. One battery was no longer enough to support the house overnight, so owners began building larger house banks. Battery 1 might remain a single lead-acid starting battery dedicated to the engine, but battery 2 might now be a bank made from 2, 3, or even 4 batteries all connected together. The labels on the switch changed as well. We started seeing people making their own labels. Position 1 became start or engine. Position 2 became house. Both remained both. It sounds straightforward, but the switch itself had not become any smarter. It still did exactly what it had always done. It connected one side to the other side or both sides to the boat. Depending on how the boat was wired, selecting house might not merely power the cabin lights, it might also connect the house bank to the starter on the engine. Selecting start might not merely start the engine, it might also run the refrigerator and other loads connected to the main panel. The words start and house could describe the batteries, but they didn't necessarily describe what the switch allowed those batteries to do. And this is where the system began to demand more knowledge from the person operating the switch, the boat owner or whoever else was on the boat. A new owner might look at the switch and assume 1 and 2 represented two similar batteries. In reality, position 1 could connect one small engine battery, while position 2 connected a much larger house bank assembled from 4 separate batteries. Previous owners may also have changed the charging system. The alternator output might still pass through that selector switch, or it might be connected directly to the start battery. A solar controller might feed the house bank. A Shore charger might have two separate outputs. An automatic charging relay might connect the banks whenever charging voltage appears. The same red switch could now behave very differently from one boat to the next. And this is why there's no universal battery switch routine that is correct for every boat. Before deciding when to use one, two, or both, you need to know how it's actually connected behind the switch. The both position became especially troublesome as the two sides became less alike. When batteries are connected in parallel, they see each other. Current can flow between them as their voltages try to equalize. If both sides contain healthy, similar lead-acid batteries and similar states of charge, that's perfectly reasonable. That was the world the switch came from. But suppose the starting battery is old and damaged. Suppose it has a failing cell, excessive internal leakage, or simply can't hold the charge anymore. The house bank, meanwhile, is healthy and fully charged. When you turn the switch to both, the weak starting battery doesn't politely sit there waiting for you to start the engine. It becomes electrically connected to the healthy house bank. Current begins flowing from the good bank to the bad battery. Instead of the healthy bank rescuing the starting battery, the failing battery drags the house bank down with it. The problem grows when the banks have different capacities, different ages, or different charging requirements. One side might be a small flooded lead-acid battery, the other might be a large AGM house bank, or the house bank may have been converted to lithium while the engine battery remains lead. Those batteries don't necessarily want the same charging voltage or profile, and the connection strategy has to be different. A traditional both position switch has no ability to manage any of this stuff. It simply bolts the two electrical systems together. There is another dangerous mistake involving the off position as well. On most traditional installs, the alternator output reaches the batteries through that same switch. So when the engine's running, the alternator is producing electricity and pushing energy toward that battery that you have selected. The battery acts both as a destination for the charging current and a stabilizing part of that electrical circuit. If you rotate the switch to off, while the engine's running, the alternator suddenly loses its connection to the battery. The alternator doesn't instantly understand that the battery's switched off. Its output voltage can spike, potentially damaging the alternator diodes and possibly other electronics. The simple rule is this: choose the position you intend to use before you start the engine, and don't turn the switch to off until the engine has stopped. There's one more misunderstanding hidden off position thing too. Off may not entirely mean off. Automatic bilge pumps are commonly wired right to the battery, so they continue working even if the switch is off. Solar controllers, battery chargers, alarms, stereo memory circuits, all kinds of equipment might bypass the switch, so off doesn't always mean off. This old selector switch arrangement can still work well. Plenty of boats continue using it safely because the owner understands the wiring and follows a consistent routine. Which brings me to why I threw my 1-2 off switch in the trash. A modern boat may have a dedicated starting battery connected only to the engine system and a separate house bank connected only to the domestic electrical panel. Each bank can have its own on-off switch, usually a breaker. The start battery always starts the engine. The house bank always runs the house. There's no need to choose which battery powers which part of the boat every time you turn a knob. Charging can then be handled separately. We've got intelligent chargers now, which are compatible with lead-acid banks. An automatic charging relay, too, can connect the banks when a charging source is present and separate them when it's not. With a lithium house bank, a DC to DC charger can take controlled power from the engine charging system and deliver it to the correct charging profile to the lithium batteries without directly having the batteries connected. Larger systems may use external regulated alternators, alternator temperature monitoring, and battery management system communication, or any other dedicated equipment for the job. But the principle is the same. Battery isolation, load distribution, and charging no longer need to be controlled by one manual selector. That's how Lady K is arranged today. The engine has its own lead-acid start battery. The alternator charges that battery. It starts the engine and supports the engine's electrical needs. The house has its own lithium bank. Solar charges that bank or the dock when you're plugged in, and the house loads draw from that bank. But because Lady K has enough solar capacity to support our normal house needs, I don't need the alternator to charge that lithium bank. The engine system and the house system remain two separate systems. There's no everyday reason for me to choose battery 1, battery 2, or both, so Lady K no longer needs that switch. That doesn't mean she has no battery disconnects. Every battery bank should have an appropriately rated means of isolation for maintenance and emergencies or electrical faults. What she does not need is a switch that allows me to accidentally connect the engine to the lithium house bank or vice versa. The trade-off is every separate system still needs a backup plan. If the starting battery on my boat fails, the answer might be a properly engineered emergency combined circuit, a suitable portable jump pack, or something else to make it work. The answer should not be grabbing a random cable and improvising a connection between two large battery banks without knowing the current and the chemistry and what'll happen. So the 1-2 both off switch was not a bad idea. It had humble, noble origins. It came from a time when a boat had two similar batteries and modest loads and one alternator. The switch allowed the owner to use one battery and protect the other and combine them if necessary, and then shut the boat down when leaving. The trouble came when our boats evolved, but the switch stayed the same. The best battery system is not the one with the most switches anyway. It's the one whose behavior is obvious and deliberate and difficult to get wrong. Make it foolproof. Speaking of newer tech, did you see this article? Taking Starlink offshore, what the Gen 2 and Mini can really do. Jacqueline writes, from Pacific crossings to remote anchorages, we look at how Starlink's Gen 2 and Mini stack up for cruisers weighing power consumption, connectivity, and cost. This is such a great read. I'll leave a link in the description for you. While you're here, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It really helps us out, but also it lets YouTube know that you like sailboat videos, so it'll show you more of them. How cool is that? And hit subscribe so I can see you again next time.